So for this Moroccan style Harira soup recipe, you are going to need some cooked lentils, which I've pre-soaked and then boiled in that pan. And in this bowl here, I've got some chickpeas, which again I've boiled, but didn't have to pre-soak. And I've written down below in the description how to do that exactly. It's a really simple technique and saves you a lot of time. And here are the rest of the ingredients that you're going to need for this soup. Now, something that's going to make this quintessentially Moroccan would be the spices that you use. And for that to happen, you are going to need coriander and cumin. They basically define the tastes of Moroccan cuisine. So you are going to need those two specifically. Here I've got some curry powder, which is purely optional, not essential at all. And I'm sure many Moroccans would disapprove. So if you have it, you can use it like I did. And here's just some, basic chopped onions, and garlic, and then some ginger as well. Carrots here are optional. You can add them if you want to. This is the water that I collected from boiling the lentils and chickpeas, which I'm going to use as broth. And you can see in that plate there, I have some cinnamon barks as well. So yeah, that's... Now the oil you're going to need for this recipe to saute the onions, garlic, and ginger with the spices with would be coconut oil. That's my personal favorite, simply because it has a higher smoking point than most other oils. If you don't have coconut oil, you can go with something like olive oil. I have extra virgin here just because I have it lying around. I take it all the time. The difference would be just how quickly the oil gets hot and smoky. So coconut oil is definitely the preferred choice. Next step is to get the pot on the stove. So I fired up the stove to about medium-ish here, and I'm using a heavy bottom, decent sized pot, which can hold a significant amount of liquid, as we are making a soup after all. We're gonna let this heat up and pour in the oil as we do that, and just wait for the oil to heat up nicely. A good way to test to see if the oil is hot enough is to place your hand just about an inch above the oil surface, and if you can't keep it there for more than 5-10 seconds, you know that it's hot enough. Okay, so the first thing that goes in would be the ginger. Okay, and we're gonna give that a little mixy. Doing this will allow to release the essential oils from the ginger, where most of the flavor comes from. So ginger takes the longest, that's why that went in first. Next would be the chopped garlic. And then give that a little mix around too. You can obviously choose to hold the pot by the handles, but that's just not how I roll, I guess. So I use the cloth there. Oh, well, now I've decided to use common sense. Now you can see that I've turned down the heat all the way down to low, because for one, you can see that it's browning really quickly, and you don't want to burn the ginger and the garlic there. Next will be the onions. All right, give that a little mix. And then now I'm going to add in the spices. So the most important ingredients would be the two main ingredients would be coriander. That goes in. The specific amount for how much spice and onion, garlic and ginger you're going to need or use for this recipe is written down in the description below. Next in will be the cumin powder. Again, this is also something that is a preference, an optional preference. Some people like to have more of a cumin flavor to it, so they add more cumin. Some people like to have more coriander, so they add more coriander. So it's absolutely down to your personal preference. I'm adding in here some cinnamon barks. And then I also forgot to mention earlier that I use some cloves as well. Now what basically I'm doing here is to deglaze the pan. So what you want to do is just lift all those browned bits that have been sautéing, you know, the onions and the spices. So lift them all up together, and that will form the base of the soup. Again, just give it a little mix around. Make sure nothing really sticks so that, you know, nothing is burning. And then here, I actually forgot to add in the curry powder with the 2 other spices just now. So again, this is optional. I decided to add it in just because I have it. And a little bit more. So if you are Moroccan, look away. Let's give that a little mixy mix. And then you can see here, everything's sort of melded together nicely. Everything's all mixed up nicely. And those brown bits at the bottom is just looking really fine. Again, I'm adding in more broth to deglaze the pan. Here I'm adding in the chickpeas into the pot, which you can see still has the liquid from the broth that I added in earlier to deglaze the pot with. You want to add the chickpeas in first because they take longer to cook than the lentils. And you can just add them in all at once, like what I'm doing here. Trying to get every little bit of chickpea into this pot. Give that a little mix around, make sure everything's on nicely, you know, coating the chickpeas. All around you want a really nice coating on those chickpeas to get the flavor in. And then here, what you want to do is just pop the lid on. Let that simmer until you get a nice sort of bubbling action going on, like this. And then now, it's time for the lentils. So the lentils, because they've already been cooked, pre-soaked and then boiled, so they are sort of already cooked. What you want to do here is essentially get it even softer. It's no longer a cooking process. It's just to make everything sort of softer, easier for you to digest and easier on the palate, as well as to absorb all of the flavors from the spices and you know, the onions, the garlic and the ginger that we sauteed earlier. Here I'm adding in the rest of the broth. I would say about a liter there of broth into the pan, and then I kind of turn down the heat a little bit. And then here I've added in some carrots. By the way, I did bring the heat up earlier. So right now the pot is on sort of a low medium heat. After about 10 minutes, this is what you get. Everything's nicely sort of simmering, bubbling away. It's not like harshly boiling, but it's a nice simmer, and that's what you want. Leave that be, pop the lid on for another 10 minutes, and you can see now it's kind of boiling more aggressively. And if it's boiling too much, right, just bring the heat down. And you want to come back to it every, say, 5 minutes or so to just make sure that nothing sticks to the bottom or to the sides of the pot. And you can start testing whether it's ready in terms of it being soft enough. So now I'm actually adding in an ingredient that I totally forgot about, which is tomato sauce. I'm using here just your standard sort of bolognese sauce that is store-bought. You don't have to use it, but since I didn't have saffron or turmeric, that adds not just flavor but also color to the soup, I decided to put that in. And yeah, I definitely forgot about the tomato sauce earlier on. Alright, so again, give that another 5 minutes on a medium low heat. Here I added in more broth so that the chickpeas and the lentils can soak all of that liquid in. After about 10 minutes, as I said, because you keep it on a pretty low medium heat underneath, it's a very gentle simmer, not a harsh kind of boiling action. Now you can start seasoning it. Salt goes in, pepper goes in. Again, the exact measurements for seasoning will be written down below. But again, you know, it's something that is optional. I mean, as in, it's a personal preference. If you like it saltier, then you add more salt. Otherwise, you know, go with what you like best. So at this stage, it's pretty much ready. You can see just how much the chickpeas and the lentils have expanded because they've absorbed all of that liquid. After about 5-10 minutes, it's ready now. And just pretty much the chickpeas and the lentils have almost doubled in size since I first put them in the pot just now. And you know it's ready. Take out the cinnamon barks at this point because it can be a little too overpowering if you leave it in there. And the soup has gotten thicker as well, thanks to the chickpeas and the lentils. And here's me plating the soup. So one condiment that goes well with this would be chopped coriander. So it's not just something to make the dish look pretty and nice, but it also kind of complements the coriander flavor from the coriander powder that we added in as the base of the soup. So it's only fitting to sprinkle on some fresh coriander, chopped fresh coriander there to finish it off. And voila, my Moroccan Harira soup. Enjoy it, guys. Really heart-warming dish. Very hearty dish.